Howdy, 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 everybody. Welcome to Office Hours FM, episode 109. I am your host, Carrie Dills, and today I have Michael Steele, aka L Steele, on the show. Michael, how are you doing?
Hey, Carrie. I'm good. I'm kind of bummed I missed the 100 episode.
Sorry, man. I could only, I had to have Matt Medeiros on for that. It was only fitting.
At least tell me I was at the top of the list.
You were, but Matt paid me a lot of money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it bumped him up.
Okay.
You all of a sudden sound quieter to me.
Am I better now?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe you're just far away.
Forward.
For those of you who are tuning in live, it is wonderful to have you. That means you get the benefit of asking Michael all the questions today. If you're tuning in on Twitter, you can do that at #OfficeFM. Or if you're watching over on Google+, you can do the Q&A, which reminds me to open up the Q&A. There we go. All right, before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, and that is the OfficeHours.fm community, which is a community created especially for small service professionals, small business professionals, like the folks that are tuning into this show with businesses centered around WordPress, that just need a place where they can hang out and mingle and interact with like-minded folks. We've got a book club going on. We've got there's a place where you can, there's a private Slack group. You can start up a mastermind, all kinds of fun stuff. Check that out at my.officehours.fm. And without further ado, we'll give a proper welcome to Michael L Steele. Where did the L Steele come from?
It is Spanish for the steel, translated loosely from what I'm familiar with.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
The Steel. Well,
The Steel.
There we go. You are located in the great state of Texas along with me. So it's good to have a fellow Texan on the show today. All right. So let's get started. And for those of you who are tuning in and have not met Michael before, Michael, will you give us a little rundown who you are, what you do?
Yep. I am from Bryan, Texas, like kind of right there in the middle. And I run a consultancy called Member Up. And we work with companies and people who are running membership-based products and subscription products. So that runs the gamut of doing custom development for them, getting them set up on a subscription platform, helping develop their strategy for acquiring new members and for keeping members, and kind of runs that whole gamut. But yeah, that's what most of what I'm working on now. I also I work with my wife. She runs an e-commerce site on WooCommerce, of course, and I help her run that, kind of moonlighting these days.
Cool. So membership and e-commerce is right up the L Steele alley.
Yeah, slowly taking over.
And you have a partner in crime in this, Travis Northcutt. How did you guys end up partnering together in business?
Well, we knew each other a little bit before we started. He is a friend of mine and was no longer. You can't be friends with your business partner. So we met, I was doing some graphic design work back in 2009, and we got together on a website project because his background is WordPress. So we hooked up on that project, and it went really well. And I was looking to sort of snowball some of this freelance work, and as was he. So we got a couple more website projects together, and then eventually decided to go full-time in what started out as a kind of generic WordPress development agency, which was just the two of us.
Did you form like did you go into it with a legal partnership, or what's your business structure?
Yeah, we set up an LLC as a partnership, and we're 50-50. I'd be interested to see how many people listening, if anybody else is in a 50-50 partnership, because it's different. It's definitely very different than just running solo or when you have control. I mean, it's just different things you gotta work around and consider and get better at. And it's been kind of an interesting journey, a good one.
Yeah, we could have an entire discussion just on that.
Yeah.
You tend to hear, I don't want to say horror stories, but you tend to not hear the best things about partnerships, or that things go sideways or whatnot. But but you guys are still friends.
We are.
And you're still working together after all this time.
Yeah.
And Travis is a great guy, so that's excellent. Yeah. So if anybody's listening live and is in a partnership 50-50 like that, would love to hear your comments. Hashtag OfficeFN. Oh my gosh, it just fell out of my head. This happens every week, Michael. Forgive me, where I get questions queued up mentally, but I don't write them down, and then right before I go to ask, they fall right right out of my head. The vendor is saying that he's doing a 50-50 with @Genesis Developer on Twitter for his theme business at Simple Pro Themes and friends. Cool. And he also asked, what services or WordPress plugin do you recommend to your clients for delivering online training courses? We've kind of gotten real familiar with about 3 or 4 of them. But in terms of delivering courses, we've really liked WooCommerce, their stack, because we're really familiar with their subscriptions and membership plugins. Just in the last year, we've started using those a lot. So generally when someone needs an LMS or something to deliver a course or the content itself, we always recommend Sensei. It's gotten a lot better just in the last couple of years. If not that, then we've done a little work with Lifter LMS, and I want to think there's one more that we used to use a lot in the past, but right now those are the main 2 that we use. I might have to get your membership expertise in action over on the community site. It's based on WooCommerce memberships and subscriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that going? You launched it pretty recently, huh?
Yeah, I launched it about 6 weeks ago, and thanks for serving up a softball for me to do a commercial on it. But right now we're about 35 strong, and it's cool. It's forum. It's a bbPress forums. So if people have tips and tricks or have questions about certain tools, or want to share a particular win or something they tried that worked, it's just it's kind of like a giant mastermind living room. And whenever somebody pops in, we get to interact. And we've started doing daily, I call it a coffee club, which sounds kind of stupid, but daily calls at 7 a.m. Central Time, which has just been a really fun way to kind of get to interact on a like face-to-face, digitally face-to-face way with other members. So tell me about, I know I build this as a recurring revenue show, and we are going to talk about that. So patience, folks. But you guys have a really interesting transition that's taken place in your business that I want to just take a moment to touch over, because I think other people can identify.
Yeah.
You guys had the Bright Agency, as you already mentioned, how you guys started. And then you said about 2 years ago, you guys started to pivot into where you are now with memberships. And then just 1 year ago, you actually caught up with rebranding, changing your name, and all of that. Can you walk us through maybe what some of the thought process was behind completely changing direction, or not completely change, but changing your focus or declaring a focus and any particular struggles in that rebrand process?
Yeah. Yeah. So going all the way back to when we first started, like I said, we were doing just general WordPress development, and pretty much I think all of our projects were local. So we were working with small businesses here in College Station and Bryan. And we did that probably for the first 2 years. We were just doing local work. And so it got to the point, I mean, it's kind of like a perfect storm of small businesses, kind of their mindset, and just the work we were doing, things that the perception at that time of WordPress. I don't know, I'm sure you remember probably, 6 or 7 years ago when you had mentioned WordPress, they would immediately assume the blog. Yeah, WordPress.com. So how are you going to build a site on a blog? We always had to preface and explain that to them. So we decided after a couple years of that we needed to be able to start getting more remote projects. We were going entirely off of referrals, which was working fairly well for us. We didn't have a lot of real dead seasons, but we knew we wanted to start expanding outside of local work, more, stuff more across the US. And so we were starting to get a little bit of momentum on that, but just realizing how competitive that was. I mean, as a generic WordPress development team, going out to the United States and saying, hey, would you like to work with us, was a hard sell, because there's literally tens of thousands of other companies that are selling the same thing. So we just always felt like we were struggling on charging what we wanted, struggling on really finding ways that we fit into that more than just cheap development. And so, in a lot of conversations that we've had with people that we looked up to and that were in our own mastermind group, we started to feel that pull that we needed to start specializing into something, to have something that we were experts at that thousands of other people weren't experts at. And so the reason we kind of pivoted into membership and subscriptions was because we had already started to do several projects in that realm that were going really well, that we really enjoyed. It fit our skill set really well of what we sort of were good at in terms of developing and strategy. And so we kind of slowly made that transition, actually. It wasn't a one day we thought, all right, let's just pull the trigger on this. We're going to go all in on this niche and hopefully it works out. We slowly did it. And the way that kind of went down was we started by just creating a landing page specific to that kind of service. So specific to anyone who's running a membership product. We were pushing people to that page only, and just kind of getting a feel, getting some projects under our belt to get a feel of like how those went, how we can best serve those people, getting more experience before we finally just said, all right, we're going to revamp and rebrand completely and go all in on it. We saw that as kind of the safest route.
And are you glad with the direction? I mean, you're
Yes.
still doing it, so.
Yes. I'll tell you, the biggest change that we've seen is we are no longer going through this long bidding process, trying to undercut prices or prove that we are trustworthy. People are coming to us seeing that this is what we are specializing in and what we know best. And they're only seeking us out to work on their project. So the tone and the conversation that we're having with leads that are coming to our site is way, way different because of that.
Very cool. Jackie asked, what areas of WordPress are candidates for niche services going forward? So I guess membership is a very broad slice of the pie, but what else do you see going on if you had your crystal ball?
Yeah, good question. I am kind of on this kick right now. I mean, this is still within the membership space, but I think, well, she's asking more on service-based stuff. I think you could get into different verticals. Like you don't necessarily, like we're pretty wide on the membership space, but if we wanted to, we could get into more specific types of clients based on their industry, or if they're maybe e-commerce. That was one thing that was really hard for us, is like getting really specific into that, because we just felt like we're going to lose business and we're going to lose a lot of opportunity for work if we get too specific into these verticals. And that's just not the case. That is what we're finding out. You can really dive down into a niche and find a lot of people that need your services. So within our space, within membership, I mean, we see a lot of like technical training sites like Treehouse, and I don't know if you've ever been to Layercast.com. There's these sites that are teaching coding and certain development that are just very popular, and they're also very niche sites. So you could look at, just kind of a vertical of industry and see what stands out to you. Maybe you already have some connections in that industry that you could kind of talk to and get some referral work from. But yeah, there's so many to get into, and what I'm realizing is it's okay to get really specific into that. And like what we did, we didn't just go all in on it all at once. We kind of dipped our toe in the water and tried out some projects and kind of built up from there.
Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, good food for thought there. I'll think about it on my own time though, so I'm not holding up the podcast. So let's get into talking about recurring revenue, which is like the magic mystical unicorn that everybody wants to get a piece of. First, maybe walk us through what your different products are that you have, products and services that you have out there that fall under that recurring revenue category, and then I want to get into some strategy talk. But first, what do you have out there that's generating recurring revenue for you?
We actually have nothing for us. We do have some retainers, obviously, but that's a little different. That's still heavily hourly based and based a lot on our own time. We are, however, working on a piece of software that fits within. It could be a tool for what we use for our clients, and that will essentially be some customer engagement type stuff for membership sites. And so that'll be something that we start rolling out hopefully this month and get some test clients onto that and work out the kinks. But other than that, most of what we're doing within recurring revenue is helping other people get into that space and maybe transition a lot of their content that they have or a lot of their IP into something that can be recurring revenue.
Y'all need to get that going for yourselves.
I know. Well, what I had started to talk about before was I'm on this kick now of trying to find these 20-year-old niche websites that just have a ton, 20 years of backlogged evergreen content that they've been building, and the owner's kind of tired out and doesn't know what to do with the site at this point, or he just doesn't need it. And I want to take that site and put it into that membership model, because we know it really well. It's we're so busy with our client services, we don't really have the time to go all in on creating something from scratch. So we're on the lookout for something really niche and old and probably looks like poop that we can take and make awesome. That's something their front page generated logo. Yes. Yeah.
Flip art. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in that case, if you found that person, are you actively like, would you cold call or pitch your services to them?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've started to do. I found a couple of sites that I've reached out to the person that owns it and trying to get that conversation started. Trying not to sound too spammy or creepy. It's hard. Can I buy your site from you?
You are really creepy, Michael.
I know.
We're going to work on that.
It's a struggle.
So you're helping your clients kind of identify and whatever their particular area of expertise is, identify some ways that they can generate recurring revenue. And is the membership model kind of always the way to go, or what you guys primarily recommend?
Not always. No. It depends where they're at. A membership really depends on how much time you can put into it and how much, especially if it's heavily content based. If you're teaching something, if you're sort of the expert that's passing on your knowledge through this paywall, then you've got to have a pretty solid product, or at least a lot of time to be able to create it. So a lot of times, if someone comes to us and they aren't yet set up to do any kind of recurring revenue model, then we look at what they're starting with and sort of what are they working full time on another gig? Is this something that they're trying to build up part time and maybe go full time on later on, or is it something that they're desperate to get going on and can put the time in to make it work? So we do not always recommend going straight into membership, but we kind of on a case-by-case basis will look at, all right, what is your content like? What's your audience like? And can there be a slower transition into that? Not a full-blown membership site, but maybe there's ways, kind of like what you're doing with your community, maybe there's ways to sort of take the content you're producing and create some community around that. That could start out as being sort of a smaller membership offering that you build on over time.
Interesting, man. Jackie's got some great questions coming out that are actually, it could be my questions. I'm going to treat this like my free consulting session with you, Michael.
Good.
Actually, I was, as a sidebar, I was chatting with Kim Doyle yesterday, and she was asking me kind of what I like about podcasting. I was like, oh my gosh, I just get to talk to some really amazing people for an hour and ask them whatever they want. It's fantastic.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
So Jackie asked, is a membership site the best place to offer courses and ebooks? Or do you put that behind the paywall, or do you put it in front? Or does it depend?
Yeah, obviously it depends, but I'd find a way to put it behind a paywall. A lot of people are sort of tentative about that because they either don't feel like it's worth money, or that people are going to get in there and not feel like it was enough value, or it's going to be hard to sell. But really, you'd be very surprised at what people will pay money for and what people will sign up for a subscription for. So I would absolutely, if you've got course content or you're thinking of creating a course, start with that. Start with sort of like a one-off course. And then what we a lot of times see off of that is once they're done with that, find some small way to keep them on. Maybe if you're teaching them something that's maybe for career development, let's say you're teaching WordPress development, how to something similar to what's the company that teaches WordPress business code? No, I can't think of it. But let's say you're doing technical training around WordPress, and they go through your course content. At the end, they don't really want to leave and sort of be left without sort of that community aspect or being able to check in and still access that content. And so there's sort of like a residual membership offering that can happen there that keeps them that keeps them on your site, keeps them as part of the community that they've gotten used to, and that they can still learn from and get support and accountability from. So there's all kinds of ways you can sort of transition into that ongoing membership. But if you're just starting out, create a course and refine that to be what really helps and serves your customers.
Let's break that down a little, because the idea of creating a course sounds scary and like a gargantuan task. Maybe some tips for, or like, how do you make that approachable? Like or maybe it's changing our mental perception of what a course is. Does it have to be a full blown, professionally produced piece of content?
Yeah. I mean, it's a ton of work. If you're doing a full blown course and you're trying to, set up this environment that people are going to learn well in and actually be successful from, it's a ton of work. Especially if you haven't really built up an audience to pitch that course to. So to make that more approachable, I would start, really, if you're not desperate to get some full-time income from this, I would start just by creating this content for free and building up that material to start out. Build up your audience just through a mailing list or just through connections that you're making. Participate in the communities that are sort of around where your expertise is, and sort of build up from there, and not feel like you have to go all in and spend 200 hours creating this thing that you're not really sure it's going to be super successful. So we always encourage starting slow and building up sort of that reputation and building up that backlog of content that you can create something from, because that's really the biggest piece, is actually creating the content.
That's great advice. Somebody said something similar to me earlier this year, and I'd shared with her that I wanted to write an ebook, that was on my bucket list for 2016. And she goes, well, start blogging the things that will eventually become that content. You can go ahead and start writing and getting it out there. And, and then when the time comes to write the ebook, you've already got a great, kind of backlog of material. Of course, it wouldn't just be shoving blog post into a PDF or something. I was like, it was kind of really eye-opening to think, oh my gosh, okay, I can put these things in alignment and not think of it as, oh, I got to create content over here, I want to create content over there, but find some ways to sort of merge all of content creation towards a common point.
Absolutely.
Let's see, I did want to ask some clarification. So for course behind a paywall, you could do, I have a membership site, like take the office hours community, and I make a course available just as part of that community. Or are you talking about you have a course that's a paid course, and then at the end of that, there's an opportunity to feed over into a membership site? Did that make sense?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I could kind of see that going two ways. If you're starting out with almost nothing and you're thinking, all right, I'm really good at this one thing, I'm really good at using Photoshop, I want to create a course. Really, the first step of that is not to start creating the course. You want to, like you said, you want to be writing the content. You want to be putting it out there as a part of your blog or as a part of a newsletter. But until you've built up an audience, you don't need to be spending a lot of time trying to create a huge product like that. There's some steps that you need to take. So in that scenario, it would be better to start on the community side of things, because that's going to be, one, a way to sort of build up that audience and learn from them and get feedback from them of what they're struggling with, what they want to learn, what you kind of get practice responding to their questions and seeing them talk about the things that they want to know better and what they struggle with. So it's usually better to start there and start building that community and then create that course content or that membership content for them to sort of buy into. Now, if you already have, we work with a lot of businesses that they start out, they're doing service-based stuff. And so they have all this IP that they've been using for one-on-one engagements with their clients. And they're starting to see this opportunity to turn that into recurring revenue and kind of open it up to the world. In that case, they already have all the content, and it wouldn't be as hard for them to fit that into a paywall, into a subscription, and start building up a membership base there. So it really just depends where you're starting from and what's going to get you, what's going to take you to getting, members successfully the quickest.
So this question, I'm going sideways just a little bit, but for someone who is starting out, or maybe they've been in business for a while, but they have not built an audience, because you can be in business making websites or doing whatever it is you do and not necessarily have an active blog or things like that. But is there another solution other than saying just do something consistently for years and then they come? Is there a quicker path to finding an audience or a community?
Yes, have a lot of money that you can invest into marketing. That really is it. I mean, you can get lucky. I mean, you can be the guy or the girl that sort of hits a home run and just finds this problem that really resonates with people, and you get a ton of people on board really quickly. But even that, I mean, there's just aspects about this model that being known and being respected and trusted within the communities of these people is really important, and that does take time. I mean, it just does. So you can. That's not to say you can't get a business going and successful quickly, but in terms of building up that reputation, building up that audience, it takes time, and it takes consistency.
There's no 10 hacks to get you there quicker.
There are, but I can't reveal those without $50.
Wow, you're pricing yourself a little low, Michael.
I mean, I have 20 hacks, but that goes up to $150.
Oh, okay. I see the way this works. And then at the end of reading all the hacks, you provide me a link to join your membership site.
Yep.
Yes.
Discounted. Discounted.
It's normally $1 million, but for you, $9.99. So what factors and offerings have you seen that make for a really good membership site, a strong site, and a growing site that's attracting new members?
We've seen a lot of success come out of something that's really niche. One example I'll give you is there's a guy, his name is Seth Rosen, and he's one of our clients that we've been working with for a long time. And he is one of those guys that's able to find those sort of diamond in the rough sites that would work really well under a membership model. And so he's found a couple jewelry making related sites and gemstone enthusiast sites that just seem like that such an obscure topic and such obscure content, but because it's so niche, there's not a lot of other competitors, and it's these sites that have just built up a community over time, and it works really well. I mean, people are really enthusiastic about these passionate hobbies and things that they want to get into and make sort of their life's work, and that tends to lend itself really well to creating communities, which is good for membership. You can have fantastic content, but that's not going to always make your site successful. Adding in some sort of community component is really important. So it tends to create these great communities around something that they all love and can agree on and say, hey, we all really like this thing, and so it makes it easier to sort of connect with other people, that you'd normally not connect with. So that's what we've seen is sort of these hobby-based or really niche, enthusiast-based sites.
Interesting. And those are paid communities or free communities?
They're paid.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
there's not just like a Facebook group for gemstone home jewelry making.
Yeah, though they do have that too, but no, they you can go look at it now. It's called gemsociety.org, I think is their TLD. But yeah, they have a full membership offering, which includes community. It includes, they have a ton of premium content that has been building up over the years and that they're still creating, and it's very cool. It's fun. Another really good example of that is Nerd Fitness. I don't know if you've ever seen that site before.
Yeah, I have not, but it sounds right
Nerd
up my alley.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And if you think about how many online fitness and physical training sites there are, to think that you could create a super successful online fitness membership site almost seems like an impossibility. But it's another one of those things where you get into this sort of niche focus, and people connect with that way easier. I mean, if someone's, the main problem for that, obviously, is someone wants to get healthier, they want to lose weight or get better at not eating too much sweets. And they're sort of looking at this massive landscape of online fitness sites or gyms that they can join. But then they come across this site that sort of speaks to who they are and they kind of self-identify with, being a nerd or being a geek. And it's perfect. It's perfect. It kind of resonates with them immediately, and it has their attention over every other option out there, which is what we really like. That's what we always sort of push on people that are trying to start something like that, is be specific. Find a really specific type of customer that you can cater to and speak their language, and sort of make all these little nuances. Like if you go to Nerd Fitness, you'll see it's just, they have all these like gamification stuff attached to their program where you can level up like a video game, and you're kind of getting all these achievements and all these mentions of Star Wars and Super Mario. And so it's just, if you fit that profile, you're all in on that. And you think, man, this is perfect for me. And that's what you kind of want. That's what you want your site to be, is you want it to have that self-identification moment for them where they're like, oh yeah, I got to check this out.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice right there. Going back to the agency question, but still talking about niches, Sarah asked, what advice do you have for agencies that are considering specializing? Like, it's kind of scary, right? To say all of a sudden I'm only going to cater to 10% or 1% of the potential market out there.
Yeah. Yes. But what I would say to that is that 1% is still tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of businesses. And so while, you do not need to be everything to everybody, is what I'm realizing. If you're running an agency, you only need 10 to 15 clients a year for a lot of people, depending on what kind of projects you're doing. So you don't need access to 50,000 different businesses. So that's the thing. One thing we really found when we started specializing that was really, I always use the word freeing in a way. We were really bad at marketing ourselves when we were sort of this generic WordPress development agency. We were bad about what do we blog about? What do we write about? How do we speak to sort of these problems in a way we don't alienate this one group, but we can still sort of speak to something specific that they struggle with. And as soon as we started specializing in this area, we were able to really focus on very specific problems that the clients we were going after were experiencing. And we didn't at all ever feel like, oh, if we write about this, or if we talk about this on our sales page, we're gonna alienate these people that could be potential clients. We can speak very specifically to different needs and problems that they're having, and is very, very effective. So that was one thing that when we started specializing, we were seeing that trend of like, it is getting a lot easier to write for these people, for these businesses. It's a lot easier to describe our services in a way that doesn't just sound like really generic and not at all attention grabbing. It was exciting to be able to do that.
Very cool. So going back to, or thinking about targeting your customers, I was at the grocery store yesterday, and when I came out, I recently got a Jeep. And when I came out, there was a business card stuck in my window that was for a Jeep off-roading company. And I was like, it's freaking brilliant. I mean, here's if you liken a parking lot of cars to, your potential ocean of potential customers, but they don't want just any old car. They want Jeeps. So they went and put business cards on. I'm guessing they just troll parking lots and put their cards on Jeeps. It's like, oh, that's freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's see. So suggestions, another question from Jackie. She's just pumping out great ones today. Suggestions from marketing your membership site for growth. What external messages work the best?
External messages. I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Well, I guess I see it like, do you see more that once people get in, like let's see on these super niche membership sites that somebody becomes a part of it and they get so super excited about how awesome it is. So then they just go and tell everybody. So it's like more word of mouth based marketing, if you will, versus like, or for me, let's say, what's, my messaging around the office hours community, or what for me to say, you get access to private Slack channel. Or people like, who cares? Or is that like, oh, private Slack channel?
Yeah.
Like, what have you found to be effective or ineffective?
Yeah. Well, all of that really comes down to, and that's why it's so good to get really specific, is because you learn exactly what they want. Obviously, it's hard to do that. It requires you sort of putting your stuff out there and getting feedback. It requires a lot of just conversations and you reaching out to your ideal member and finding out what, like, for example, for your site, for your community, what about mastering and learning WordPress is a struggle for you? I mean, is it that you're sort of a slave to a Google search and you always feel like you're bouncing around from tutorial to tutorial, and or if you're having a hard time like figuring out where you fit in the WordPress community or where you fit in offering services related to WordPress, like you find out what they struggle with, and that's sort of what you build your offering around. And you start, you start just like you did, just kind of opening the doors and letting them sort of come in and give you that feedback. But you got to identify where those people are, right? You got to know where they sort of already congregate. And there's somebody, I think it's Amy Hoy, she calls it the watering hole, where all your ideal members are coming already. Where are they gathering? And just take part in that discussion. Find out what their big pain points are. What are the things that give them the biggest headaches? Maybe there's community. I mean, certainly there's communities like yours out there. What about those communities do they not like? Where do they fall short that you can come in and offer something that really solves that need for them? And I think, in the example of of Nerd Fitness, that's what he did. I mean, he saw where the fitness industry was failing people that are not looking to just get super buff or super fit. They want to feel healthier. They sit at a desk job all day. They want to feel healthier, but it's also really intimidating and uncomfortable for them to go to a gym or get a personal trainer. It just doesn't really fit their style, their personality. And so he learned that over time. And that's how he sort of created that really unique and tailored offering for that type of person. And that's why it resonates so strongly, is because he knows exactly what his product does that other products don't do.
Man, I got to go off and do some thinking and some tweaking. Devinder asked, well, this is kind of a depressing question, Devinder, but reality. So how do you deal or how to deal with the failure of a membership site? Or I guess at what point do you say, woo, this is not working? Do you keep working to tweak it, use paid promotions, close it down, make it free content? Or have you seen people kind of gracefully piece out of a membership situation?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, look, it depends where you're at. I mean, how much do you depend on the income of that site, right? How much do you depend on money coming in through that? Can you realistically ride that out and try and tweak and try and make improvements? Or at some point you gotta say it's just not working. I would recommend that you hold very loosely what you think is important about your membership site. Because like I was saying, you're going to find out what your members care about, and that may not line up with what you think they care about. And so if it's, it just depends what the reality of your site is. If just nobody is coming and you're just hearing no, and people don't think it's worth it, and you've messed with your pricing, you've tried lowering your prices or adding new features that you think would help, and it's still not working, then it may be time to reconsider or think of something else. A lot of times when people are trying to get into a membership site, a lot of it is based on their own expertise. It's what sort of that one person brings to the table, right? They sort of have this knowledge that they want to pass on to their members. So you got to kind of do some self-evaluation. Like, what are you good at? What kind of experience do you have that makes you different from everybody else? And yeah, it's there's an example that I've used before of, let's say you're wanting to teach photo editing using Photoshop. Well, there's so much free content out there to learn that stuff. I mean, endless tutorials on anything you would want to know about photo editing. But if you have a unique experience, maybe you have worked in an actual studio where photography is getting sold at tens of thousands of dollars, and you know what it takes for a photo to be valued at that level, then you have a unique experience to teach people. That's not just that these other tutorials on YouTube and other websites can't teach. They don't have that experience. So really look at that, sort of some self-evaluation of yourself. Like, what experience do you have? What have you been successful in doing that can really set your site apart from a lot of other competitors or a lot of the free content that's out there?
You've got some great wisdom going on. You don't look old enough to have all of that wisdom, but still, you have it.
I'm 52.
52. Will you send me, I'll even use your affiliate link, whatever kind of lotion it is that you use on your wrinkles.
Absolutely,
Yeah. Well, speaking of, the things that you think that an audience might want one thing and turns out that they want something completely different. This
Mhm.
podcast is a perfect example of that. It started out under the name Genesis Office Hours and was geared to be a technical show answering people's questions about the Genesis framework. And that lasted for all of 2 episodes. It was obvious that people were really just more curious about hearing from my guests and hearing about their experiences and what tools they use and that sort of thing. So, I rolled with it, and I'm sure glad that I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, just interesting. Let's see. I think I might have missed some questions in there. So if you're asking questions on Twitter and I haven't asked yours, bump it back up to the top. Let's see. We've got, how often do you recommend surveying your members?
We recommend one, building that in sort of your automation for onboarding new members. So if you can, make sure that you're surveying them maybe a certain amount of time after they join, or if you offer a free trial, maybe you're sort of building in some surveys into that. But definitely something that you can automate. So just so you can kind of create a feedback loop for your site that's not just dependent on you mustering up the courage to ask. But then also, I would say using your community, if that's something that you have as a part of your offering, you certainly want to actively be participating in that and asking questions and finding a lot of that sort of survey material out in that way. So often as you can without it feeling like you're being annoying, for sure.
Don't be annoying. Good stuff.
Don't be annoying.
I might be that from time to time, or I always feel like I'm being that. So I'm kind of leery of asking too many questions. But see, Devendra asks, which platform do you use to interact with clients and track progress in quantitative terms?
And finding their own site metrics.
I guess, yeah, I'm not sure if we're talking about membership here or more back on the agency side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie
I can talk
both. Bring it on.
Well, on client side, I mean, all of our project communication is done with Basecamp and with Slack. So we kind of go back and forth between those two. In terms of like evaluating their progress from a membership standpoint, that's a little trickier because it depends a lot on what platform they're on, like what plugin they're using. Some have some built-in metrics, some don't. So if they're up for us coming in and setting up, setting up that system for collecting data and evaluating data, we do that. But sometimes we just kind of depend on what the plugin allows. I probably answered none of his question.
That, you know what, you're dishing out good info for
but
free.
I tried.
So it's all good.
That was my best try.
And I'm kind of following up on the analytics side. Do you use any analytics to track particular areas of the membership that are more popular than others? Like what features, I guess, are working and what are not?
Yeah, that gets tricky, but we do. What we've used in the past is sort of this combination of Intercom. I don't know if you've ever used that or seen that before. It's basically it's messaging for usually SaaS companies. So you can it's sort of set up for different areas of your business. It can be customer support or onboarding, engagement type stuff. If you've ever seen the little chat window that pops up with the little circle headshot, and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing? I just want to make sure you're doing okay." If you've ever seen that, that's what it is, and it also does email messaging. But when you use this solution called Segment, you can send all the data happening on your WordPress site to Intercom and set up custom behavioral tracking in Intercom. I know this is getting very technical, but so for example, on your site, if you had this set up, you could see when people log in. You can see when how often people are coming to the site, how often they're posting to the forums. If you have maybe some video content, you could see how often they're completing a video, and you can set automated tasks or automated messages to go out based on that action. So a good example is if one of your members hasn't logged in 30 days, that's a big problem. They're probably going to cancel soon. You can set up on Intercom for anybody that has hit that threshold of not showing up for 30 days. It sends them a message, an email that says, hey, I see you haven't been on in a while. Can I help with anything? Or did you know that we just launched this new feature that we hope is really helpful? We'd love it if you tried it and told us what you thought. And, just kind of ways to sort of save that account and get them re-engaged on the site. There's a lot of stuff you can do like that, which is super helpful.
And you actually offer that kind of stuff, like setting up Intercom, et cetera, for your clients?
We do, yeah. And the SaaS product that I mentioned earlier that we're working on does that. That's sort of our solution to that more complex system. So we're trying to create that as a solution for smaller businesses, solo run businesses, that makes it a little bit more achievable for them to get set up and track that kind of data and see where their customers are at on a live basis.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk turkey. So money. Since your service is very custom to vendor ask, how do you price? Is it based on like size of, or how much, or traffic, or how do you ballpark these things?
I have a feeling we're opening up another 30-minute conversation here. We typically do flat fees on all our projects, and we base that on a lot of different things. But most of our projects these days always start with the paid discovery. So we're very rarely bidding out a project without doing some doing a lot of digging and a lot of research on what exactly needs to get done. What we do build in some kind of value-based pricing into that. If we see that if there's a very clear return on us building out a particular feature or fixing a certain problem that they're having on their site, then we will sort of assess, like, there's some value to that may be more than what we charge hourly. So we've sort of just built up our own sort of internal system to master that process. We are not at all masters of that process at all, but we've gotten better at it. And
awesome.
we've gotten better at asking, rather than putting in 10 hours to like scope out a project. We've gotten better at turning that into a paid engagement up front.
Man, I wish we did have another 30 minutes to talk about that. Maybe I'll get you to do a little private interview for the community. We'll go on digging into that. But we are at the 1 hour mark, and I know that you have things that you need to get doing, and same with guests. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live today. Again, I would love for you just to check out the community, my.officehours.fm. I would love your feedback, good, bad, ugly, whatever you got. Send it to me at hello@officehours.fm. And with that, Michael, where can people follow up with you, say hello, thanks for the great info, or just check out what you're doing online?
Yeah. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me, michael@memberup.co. Couldn't get that .com. Damn it. Or we run a newsletter on our site, also at memberup.co. And if you're interested in either that that SaaS product I was talking about, the engagement product, or just learning more about the membership model in general. We talk a lot about that on there. And I'm working on right now right now we have an email course that's on our site. I'm working on revamping that to be more about how you can compete with free. That's a big problem with the clients that we deal with is they have this expertise and they want to get into this model, but there's just so much other free options out there on YouTube or at the end of a Google search. So I'm exploring in that new email course, I'm exploring sort of the core ways to differentiate yourself and make your content have more perceived value for people.
Oh,
So
that sounds awesome. And I like the title.
If you want to hear when we launch that, it should be later this month, but just get on our newsletter and you'll hear about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Michael, and for sharing all you know. And for everyone who is listening to this, I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
It was fun, Carrie.